When I opened my safe that morning, I felt my breath catch in my throat. For a moment, I thought I had lost my mind. The shelves were bare, every necklace, every ring, every bracelet that my late husband had gifted me, gone. Those jewels weren't just ornaments. They were memories. Each gem carried a story. My wedding day, my first anniversary, the night my husband whispered that I was the brightest diamond in his life. But now only silence filled the room. And then I heard footsteps behind me. Lena, my daughter-in-law, stood at the door, arms crossed. Her lips curved in that sharp little smile I'd come to dread. "Oh, don't look so shocked, Mother," she said casually. "We donated everything. You don't need those things anymore. You're too old for all that sparkle." Her words cut deeper than any blade. Too old. For years I had lived quietly in their house after my husband's death, watching them chase modern luxuries while I held on to small pieces of my past. I never interfered, never demanded anything, but now she had crossed the line. I looked at her calmly, my hands trembling, and said, "You're right, dear. I don't need it, but you're going to need a lawyer." The look on her face, pure panic behind that fake calm, was something I will never forget. She had no idea that those jewels weren't just family treasures. They were legally documented under my name, insured and protected, and by donating them without my permission. She had just committed a serious crime, but I didn't plan to call the police, not yet. I had something else in mind, something she'd never see coming. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat by the window, staring at the moon that hung pale and distant. The same moon I once used to share with my husband when he was alive. Back then, life had been gentle. His laughter used to fill this house. Now, only Lena's sharp voice echoed through its walls. I remembered the last gift he ever gave me, a delicate gold bracelet engraved with his words. "For every battle you'll fight alone, remember, you are stronger than the storm." I touched my wrist and felt the absence of that bracelet like an open wound. In the morning, Lena behaved as if nothing had happened. She smiled sweetly at the breakfast table, talking about charity, her voice dripping with fake virtue. My son, Daniel, sat silently, sipping coffee, avoiding my eyes as if pretending ignorance would make him innocent. But I knew him. He was weak, not cruel. She was the puppeteer. So I played my part. I smiled. I even praised her for her kindness. Inside, though, I was already 10 steps ahead. After breakfast, I went to my room and opened a small wooden box hidden inside an old drawer. Inside were the original insurance papers, official documents stating that every piece of jewelry was mine alone. I had even photographed each item years ago for safety. Then I opened my husband's old writing desk, the one Lena never bothered to touch because it smelled like dust and memories. Inside, I found a small black envelope sealed with my husband's initials. He hadn't written it before he passed away. It said, "If anyone ever tries to take away what's yours, let the law remind them whose name is carved in stone." Tears blurred my vision, but I smiled, a slow, quiet smile that carried both grief and power. That afternoon, I visited an old friend, Mr. Harlan, my husband's lawyer. When I told him what had happened, his calm eyes darkened. "Mrs. Walker," he said, "this isn't charity. This is theft." He drafted the complaint quietly, carefully, with the precision of a man who had seen greed destroy families. But I stopped him before signing. "No," I whispered, "not yet. I don't want her in jail. I want her to understand." And that's when the plan truly began. The jewels she had donated? They weren't real. I had replaced them years ago with high-quality replicas after noticing the way. Lena's eyes sparkled whenever I wore them. The real ones, worth a fortune, were safely locked away in a private vault under my granddaughter's name across the country. Lena thought she had robbed me. She had only robbed herself. And soon I would let her find that out, slowly, painfully, and without a single word of anger from my lips. For the next few days, I became invisible in my own house. No one asked how I was or if I needed anything. Lena walked around proudly, telling her friends on the phone, about her charity act. She said she was proud to help an old woman finally let go of her greed. I heard every word, each one like a needle pressing deeper into my chest. But I said nothing. Silence, I've learned, can be the sharpest weapon of all. One morning, a letter arrived, an invitation to the annual charity gala, the same organization, where Lena had donated my jewels. My heart skipped a beat. Fate was giving me the perfect stage. That night, I dressed simply. A long silver gray gown my husband once loved, and asked my son to drive me there. He looked uncomfortable, eyes avoiding mine. He knew what Lena had done, and guilt had turned him small. When we arrived, the hall sparkled with lights and laughter. Wealthy donors filled the room, glasses of champagne clinking in the air. And there she was, Lena, standing proudly near the stage, wearing one of my diamond necklaces. Yes, she hadn't donated them. She had kept them. She was telling people they were heirlooms passed down from her grandmother. The lies rolled off her tongue so easily it made me tremble. But instead of rage, I felt pity. Because the moment she lifted that glass of wine and smiled for the camera, everything changed. Mr. Harlan stepped forward from the crowd. The lawyer. My husband's old friend. He held a folder in his hand, his voice calm and cold. Mrs. Walker, he said politely, addressing me in front of everyone. As requested, I brought the appraisal. Reports for your jewelry collection, including the photographs and ownership certificates. The crowd turned to look at me, and then at Lena. Her face drained of color. Her lips parted, trying to form an excuse, but it was too late, because on the big screen behind the stage, the charity slideshow had started, showing each donation with the owner's name. None of the jewelry she wore was listed. People began whispering. Cameras flashed. Her charity act was unraveling faster than she could breathe. She turned to me, eyes wide with panic. Mother, I can't explain, but I raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Greater than. No need, dear. You said I was too old for jewels. You were right, but you're too young to understand honor. I turned and walked away, leaving her trembling in front of everyone. Her lies laid bare, her pride shattered. That night, I sat by the window again, the moonlight soft against my face. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just felt a strange peace, the kind that comes when justice doesn't scream. It whispers. For years, this home had been filled with noise, Lena's voice commanding, Daniel's excuses, the hum of a family that had forgotten how to love. But now, there was only the soft ticking of the clock on the wall, counting down the end of something broken. Lena didn't come out of her room for hours. When she finally did, her eyes were swollen, her perfect hair undone. The pride that once sat on her face had vanished, replaced by fear. She came to me slowly, clutching the necklace she'd worn at the gala. Her voice trembled. Mother, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just thought. Her words fell apart. She couldn't finish. I looked at her, this woman who had once laughed at my wrinkles, mocked my memories, stolen my husband's legacy, and for a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. You thought I was too old to care, I said softly. Too old to fight back. But you are wrong, Lena. You don't understand age, you understand greed. She knelt in front of me, crying, whispering apologies I didn't believe. And in that moment, Daniel walked in, my son, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. His voice was barely a whisper. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have stopped her. I didn't answer. Some wounds don't need words, only silence to echo through them. Then I stood up, handed them a small white envelope, and said quietly, I'm leaving this house. Everything here, the furniture, the cars, even the accounts, they're yours now. Enjoy them. Lena blinked, confused, wiping her tears. You're leaving? I nodded. Yes, but before I go, I left something for you both. They didn't notice when I left the room, didn't notice the lawyer waiting outside. Inside that envelope was a letter and a single document, a legal transfer of ownership, not to Daniel or Lena, but to a children's foundation in my husband's name. Every piece of property, every account, every asset, donated, the same way Lena had once donated my jewels. When they realized what had happened, I was already gone. The house they had once ruled no longer belonged to them. They stood in an empty hallway, no wealth, no pride, just the sound of the lawyer's voice reading my last note aloud. "You said I didn't need jewels." "You were right. What I needed was peace, and I've found it. I only hope one day you'll understand that love is the only treasure worth keeping." I moved to a small cottage by the sea, quiet, peaceful, free. Every night, I light a candle beside my husband's photograph and whisper, "They took everything, but I gave it all away." And sometimes, when the moonlight touches my wrinkled hands, I smile because revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply walks away and lets karma finish the rest.